The mind does not become restless because life is difficult. It becomes restless when it no longer knows who is in charge. Restlessness is not excess energy. It is uncontained energy. When the mind loses structure, it doesn't slow down, scatters, thoughts multiply, attention fragments. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable, not because silence is empty, but because there is no internal order to hold it. A controlled mind can remain still. An uncontrolled mind needs constant movement. That movement appears as distraction, checking something, thinking about something else, jumping from one idea to another, not intentionally, reflexively. The nervous system keeps searching for stimulation, because stimulation temporarily masks disorder. But stimulation never resolves restlessness. It only delays it. The mind becomes restless when there is no internal hierarchy. When everything feels equally important, nothing can be prioritized. So the brain keeps switching. This switching creates fatigue, not physical but cognitive. You feel tired without doing much, because attention has been spent everywhere, without ever settling. Restlessness is often misunderstood as anxiety, but anxiety has fear at its center. Restlessness has lack of direction. The mind wants to move, but doesn't know where, so it moves everywhere. This is why modern restlessness feels endless. There is no enemy, no visible threat, no reason to run, and yet the mind keeps running, because control has dissolved. Control is not force. Control is clarity. When clarity disappears, the mind cannot rest. Keep scanning, waiting, anticipating, even during calm moments, even during safety. This constant scanning activates the stress response. Not fully but partially, enough to disturb peace, enough to prevent stillness, enough to keep the system alert without purpose. That state is exhausting. The body sits still, but the mind never arrives. Restlessness often increases at night, when distractions reduce, when movement stops, when silence appears, because silence exposes the absence of internal command. During the day, activity hides it. At night, it surfaces. Thoughts replay. Regrets resurface. Imagined futures appear, not because the mind wants to suffer, but because without control, the mind cannot shut its own doors. A disciplined mind closes when needed. An undisciplined mind remains open to everything. Every memory, every possibility, every fear, and an open system cannot rest. This is why restlessness often coexists with overthinking. Overthinking is not intelligence. It is the mind spinning without supervision. When there is no internal authority, thoughts govern themselves. They don't move toward solutions. They circulate, repeating the same loops, again and again. The more this happens, the more the mind loses trust in itself, because it feels chaotic, unpredictable, unstable, and instability creates tension. That tension seeks release, so the mind reaches outward. Food, screens, noise, conversations, anything to interrupt the internal noise. But relief gained externally always fades, because the source was never outside. It was internal disorganization. The longer this continues, the harder stillness becomes. The mind begins to fear calm, because calm now means confrontation with chaos. So distraction becomes identity. People say they can't sit still, but the truth is deeper. They cannot sit with themselves, not because they are broken, but because the mind has not been trained to hold space. Restlessness is not weakness. It is unguided momentum, energy without command. A horse without reins does not stop running. Panics. The mind behaves the same way. Without direction, movement becomes distress. And slowly, the person forgets what peace even feels like. They assume restlessness is normal. They live inside noise. They adapt to chaos, until silence feels foreign, and foreign things feel threatening. This is how restlessness becomes permanent. Not overnight, but through repetition, through lack of pause, through absence of inner leadership. The mind begins obeying impulses instead of instruction, and when impulse leads, stability disappears. When restlessness becomes familiar, the mind stops questioning it. It adjusts. This adjustment is dangerous, because what the mind adapts to, it eventually accepts as normal. Restlessness then stops being a symptom and becomes a background state, always present, rarely noticed. At this stage, the person is no longer aware of agitation. They are simply never fully settled. They can work, they can talk, they can function, but there is a subtle tension underneath everything. A quiet urgency, a feeling that something must be done, even when there is nothing to do. This constant low-level tension drains the inner core. Not dramatically, gradually, the mind loses its ability to stay with one thing. Reading becomes harder. Listening feels effortful. Concentration fragments. The person may not notice immediately. They assume they are just busy, or tired, or not in the mood. But the truth is simpler. The mind has forgotten how to stay. Staying requires control. Without control, the mind prefers escape. So attention keeps slipping, even during important moments, even during conversations, even during rest. This creates a subtle sense of dissatisfaction. Nothing feels complete. Experiences start feeling shallow, because depth requires presence, and presence requires stillness. Restlessness weakens presence. Over time, this affects confidence, not in an obvious way, but in a quiet internal way. The person stops trusting their own mind. They feel mentally unreliable. They start saying things like, "I can't focus like I used to. My mind is all over the place. I don't feel sharp anymore." This internal doubt becomes part of identity. Confidence is not just about external behavior. It is about inner coherence. When thoughts scatter, coherence collapses. And when coherence collapses, authority dissolves. The person may still speak, but their words carry less weight, because the mind behind them is unsettled. Others can sense this, not consciously, but instinctively. A restless mind emits instability, and instability does not command respect. This is why restlessness slowly erodes authority, not because the person becomes weak, but because their inner state becomes noisy. Noise undermines presence. Presence is power. Restlessness also affects emotional regulation. Small things irritate more easily. Patience shortens. Reactions become quicker. Not explosive but sharp. Because the nervous system is already strained. The mind has less buffer, less space, so emotions spill faster. This leads to regret, apologies, self-criticism, which further destabilizes the mind. A loop begins. Restlessness reaction, regret, mental noise, more restlessness. Over time, the person feels internally crowded. Too many thoughts, too many impulses, too many unfinished loops. This crowding creates pressure, and pressure seeks release. So the mind looks for quick relief. Scrolling, snacking, mindless entertainment, constant background noise. These do not solve restlessness. They postpone awareness. But postponement comes at a cost. The mind loses tolerance for silence. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable, even threatening, because silence exposes disorder. So silence is avoided. And when silence is avoided long enough, inner peace becomes unfamiliar. At this stage, even when life slows down, the mind does not. Vacations don't help. Free time doesn't relax. Rest doesn't restore. Because the issue is not workload. It is loss of internal command. The mind no longer responds to intention, only to impulse. An impulse is a poor leader. This is how restlessness becomes a quiet form of inner decay. Not visible, not dramatic, but deeply corrosive. There comes a point where restlessness is no longer something the mind experiences. It becomes something the mind is. At this stage, the person no longer remembers what inner calm feels like. Calm seems unrealistic, foreign, almost imaginary. They hear others speak about peace, balance, control, and it feels abstract, like a concept meant for someone else, because their internal environment has been noisy for too long. The nervous system has adapted to stimulation. It now expects movement. When nothing happens, the system panics slightly, not visibly, internally. This panic manifests as discomfort with stillness. Even a few moments of doing nothing feels wrong. The mind searches for input, anything, a thought, a memory, plan, a worry. It creates activity simply to avoid emptiness. But this emptiness is misunderstood. It is not emptiness. It is unstructured space. And without discipline, space feels dangerous. Because structure provides safety. When structure disappears, the mind feels exposed. So it fills the space with noise. This is why many people say they feel lost, even when their life is stable. Loss here is not external. It is internal disorientation. The mind does not know where it stands anymore. No internal anchor. No internal rhythm. No internal center. Restlessness erodes the sense of self. Slowly, quietly, the person begins reacting more than choosing. Days feel busy but directionless. Decisions feel heavy. Motivation comes in short bursts, then disappears. Not because of laziness, but because sustained intention requires control. Without control, motivation cannot stay. It flickers. The individual may start many things, finish very little, This damages self-trust. And when self-trust weakens, identity destabilizes. They no longer see themselves as someone reliable. They hesitate, second-guess, delay, even when they know what to do. This internal hesitation creates shame, subtle shame, not spoken, but felt, a feeling of something is wrong with me. This is dangerous, because the problem was never character. It was training. But the mind interprets lack of control as personal failure. And once that belief forms, the person stops trying to regain order. They normalize chaos. They tell themselves, "This is just how I am." This sentence locks restlessness permanently, because identity resists change. A habit can be broken. An identity defends itself. Now restlessness protects itself. When the person attempts discipline, it feels unnatural. When they attempt silence, it feels uncomfortable. When they attempt focus, it feels exhausting. So they retreat, not because they can't improve, but because their system is no longer used to command. It has lived too long under impulse. Impulse feels familiar, control feels foreign, and the mind prefers familiarity over health. This is the deepest danger of restlessness. It does not destroy the mind suddenly. It convinces the mind that destruction is normal. And once chaos feels normal, order feels restrictive, peace feels boring, stillness feels empty, discipline feels oppressive. The person begins defending the very state that drains them. This is not weakness. It is conditioning. The mind has learned to survive without leadership. But survival is not strength. It is endurance. And endurance without direction leads nowhere. At this level, restlessness becomes invisible. But its effects are everywhere. In reduced depth, in fragile confidence, in unstable emotions, in constant searching. The person keeps looking for something, a feeling, a breakthrough, a moment of clarity. But clarity cannot arrive in motion. It requires pause, and pause cannot exist without control. So the search continues, day after day, without knowing what is missing, only knowing that something is. Restlessness does not announce itself loudly. It does not arrive as chaos. It settles quietly, so quietly that one day you wake up and realize you have not felt truly still in a long time, not peaceful, not grounded, just constantly moving inside. The mind keeps going, but nothing feels complete. And slowly, without noticing, you stop listening to yourself. You learn to live with noise. You learn to function without calm. You learn to survive without center. Until one day, the restlessness no longer feels strange, feels normal. And that is the moment it becomes most powerful. Because when disorder feels normal, order feels distant. When tension feels familiar, peace feels unrealistic. And when movement never stops, direction disappears. This is not failure. This is what happens when control is absent for too long. The mind does not collapse. It drifts. And drifting is more dangerous than falling. Because falling is noticed. Drifting is not. So the noise continues. The searching continues. The unease stays unnamed. Until awareness appears. Until something inside finally asks, "Why can't I be still anymore?" That question does not bring answers, but it brings the beginning, because restlessness survives only when it remains unconscious. The moment it is seen, its hold weakens, and silence, even for a moment, becomes possible again.